The fourth year of full-scale war, Ukraine continues to fight and hold its ground, and communication has become the very nerve of both defense and everyday life. For the military, it means instant orders and reports, drone control, and surveillance over vital areas. For civilians, it means access to truthful information, timely air raid alerts, medical assistance, education, and the simple ability to say, "I'm safe." Every day, telecom engineers, the invisible heroes of the network, step into danger. They venture into fields and shattered cities, often within firing range. They repair torn fiber trunks, weld optical lines inside shelters, raise temporary radio bridges, connect generators, and swap batteries at network nodes. Often they do it under shelling, when the vehicles still smolder and explosions echo nearby. Their work is dangerous and unseen. No parades, no headlines. But with one clear result, the network breathes again. Each restored cable means life returning to a neighborhood, a hospital, a school. Each stabilized base station means another chance to hear the siren on time or to call for help. All of this is the tireless work of thousands of small and large operators who have made the Ukrainian internet not only survive, but become far more resilient. When we receive a notification or hear from our loved ones, we should remember, behind every signal stand people who consciously go where it's most dangerous, so the rest of us can stay connected. The experience gained by Ukrainian telecom engineers through 4 years of war is invaluable. Hard-earned knowledge and skill that some of them have agreed to share in this film. Let's look at the work of the telecommunications industry through the eyes of those who stand on the front line of Ukraine's battle for connectivity. Kherson became one of the first major Ukrainian cities to fall under Russian occupation at the very start of the full-scale invasion. For 8 long months, occupying forces tried to break and intimidate the population, to seize businesses, to silence voices, to cut the region off from communication and truth. Telecom engineers were among the first to feel the pressure. They faced constant surveillance, propaganda, and threats. This is Danilo Tatarinov, the director of Radio Vinner. He came to the Kherson region on a business trip. To expand local networks, that's where the war found him.
We grabbed our dogs, the documents, and drove to the office. My technicians were asking me in our work chats, what do we do? What's next? No one really understood what was happening. You could feel the panic in people. Cars were lining up at gas stations. The queues in stores were insane. We arrived at the office and we worked.
One of the toughest challenges for any leader in wartime is to keep the team together. To lead by example, showing what it truly means to act with courage when everything around you is uncertain.
Everyone thought I was going to leave, and I did think about it. But that day, 16 of our guys, the installation team, came to the office. I looked at them, and I realized I had to stay. I had to do something, because if I left, everyone would scatter, go their own way, and most likely, nothing would be left. Under occupation, everything would have been taken anyway.
Some of the staff who could work remotely moved to safer regions of Ukraine, and some even abroad. This created a new challenge for telecom operators and service providers to rebuild teamwork at a distance and make remote operations as effective as possible in the middle of a war.
Some of the staff relocated, mostly support teams like accounting and other departments. We first had to rebuild communication between them. And the guys who stayed on the ground, well, most of them just moved their families to safer places, but they themselves remained where they were.
Yevhen Boyko, regional manager for Eastern Ukraine at the telecom operator Prostonet. His area covers dozens of towns and villages, some lying right next to the front line, others reduced to ruins by guided air bombs and artillery fire. That's why Yevhen knows better than anyone. Every active network node must be protected, as much as possible, from physical destruction.
The main thing is to protect the central communication hub. If it hasn't been moved yet, it's time to seriously think about it. Move it underground into a basement, somewhere it can be protected. And make sure all the connections from that room go through existing infrastructure, like the old Telecom ducts or underground channels. In other words, do everything possible to secure the heart of the network.
But what if the server room is larger than just 5 square meters? How do you keep an entire data center running in the middle of a war? The answers to these questions are known by Volodymyr Pokatilov, the director of one of the most critical hubs of Ukraine's internet, the Parkovy data center.
At that moment, the data center wasn't ready. And there was one big problem. No standard, neither American nor European, requires a data center to operate during wartime. It was, on one hand, an interesting experience, and on the other, a real challenge. We set up food storage, arranged sleeping areas, and for almost 2 months, until the end of March 2022, people literally lived inside the data center, barely going home. We had to protect both the staff and the facility itself. Using whatever we could find, mostly sand and sandbags, we sealed the windows and reinforced the perimeter. We quickly found spare rooms, moved the necessary equipment there, and during air raid alerts, the team would leave the main hall and continue monitoring operations from the protected zone.
To keep any technology company running, you need countless pieces of specialized equipment. But during a war, even the simplest procurement tasks, finding the right devices, cables, or materials, turn into a logistical nightmare.
One of the biggest challenges we faced in the beginning was a completely broken logistics system. And it was broken across the entire country. For example, there was a case when a memory module in one of our servers failed. We had valid contracts. The vendor was supposed to replace it under a 24/7 support agreement. But at that moment, nothing worked. So we had to rebuild the logistics ourselves, using every possible and impossible way we could. Later, by mid-2022, we managed to solve this issue. We created a large warehouse of spare parts and consumables. That's how we finally overcame the problem.
Kinetic attacks are not the only weapon of modern war. Alongside drone strikes and missile hits, another battle is being fought: the information war. Cyber attacks on critical infrastructure have become another serious challenge faced by Ukraine's IT and telecom companies.
About 40 minutes after we detected the attack, our technical director and I decided to completely disconnect the data center from the internet. Fully isolate it. That's how we stopped the attack. What did it give us? First of all, time. The attackers couldn't achieve what they had planned. Yes, part of our public cloud and some services were affected, along with portions of our storage and backup systems. But the main network and the core of the data center kept running. We've always worked with our clients as partners, so we told them honestly what had happened. That transparency helped us move fast. By 4 p.m. that same day, we already had a full report of the damage and a clear recovery plan in place.
Insidious attacks on Ukraine's power grid have severely disrupted the country's energy system. Rolling blackouts are now part of everyday life, and for telecom companies, they've become yet another challenge in the fight to keep the nation connected.
We've fully reached the first category of power supply reliability. That means dual feeds at all central sites, backup generators, and uninterrupted power systems, all mandatory. A lot of money was invested into that, especially in the western regions. We've built true data center level systems, power stabilizers, redundancy, everything needed to keep the network alive under constant shelling.
Our engineers and specialists urgently needed a solution, and we found it. We developed custom circuits and upgraded power boards in network switches. Electricity was on for 4 hours, then off for 4 hours. Our main task was ensuring the batteries could fully recharge within these 4-hour windows, so the devices would reliably operate during subsequent outages. At one point, we even started importing battery cells from abroad as they charged faster. We purchased battery management systems, BMS, and assembled batteries ourselves directly in our company's office.
Providing backup power for every building is an enormous challenge. Batteries are expensive, hard to find, and their lifespan is far from endless. That's why many operators began transforming their existing FTTB networks into passive optical ones to make them more resilient in times of war.
We significantly accelerated the deployment of PON networks. If, at the start of the power outages, roughly 5 to 10% of our network was built using PON technology, over the next 2 years, we tripled that percentage of users.
Even fiber optic networks, which remain highly effective during the energy crisis, are not immune to physical damage. Many telecom operators use overhead lines for cable deployment, and those cables often become collateral damage under constant shelling.
Аристопіль. Воно які опори тут красиві. Воно прильот. Коротше, все, що в округі, все лежить. Відновлюємо.
Keeping servers and communication lines intact is a critical mission for telecom operators during the war. But even more important is keeping their people safe. In areas close to the front lines, that becomes an almost impossible task.
Есть здесь спрятаться.
Пора в***ать.
Свинарник рубил. Куда?
Ну куда-то в ту сторону. А?
Давай.
Тупо 5 минут назад там були. 2 хати як не було. Обрив нашої лінії. Заміна кабеля буде проходити от тієї муфти, і я думаю, що аж до бокса.
Нема машини.
We had bulletproof vests. We bought them ourselves. Now we're moving to a new level. We're training our staff, teaching them what to do, how to act. We're making sure they have proper first aid kits and that they know how to use them. And now, in some regions, we're even purchasing FPV drone detectors.
The Russian-Ukrainian war has become the most technologically advanced conflict in history. Thousands of drones and robots are involved in combat missions, reconnaissance, and even in rescuing wounded soldiers from the battlefield. In frontline towns and villages, telecom engineers are forced to use special detection devices to be warned in time about approaching drones that could threaten human lives.
Basically, anywhere near the riverbank, within 5 kilometers, it's all under drones. They're everywhere. And the thing is, drones can come and go, and right after that, artillery follows. Sometimes it's just a couple of minutes, 5, maybe 10, and the shells start landing. No one's protected from that. 2 of my guys got hit on the same day. They were in the same crew. One got off relatively easy, but the other, he spent half a year in the hospital. It seemed quiet that day. Nothing looked suspicious. They went out to do repairs. He told me later, we didn't even hear the shot. A single shell hit, just like that. 2 men wounded. I drove them to the hospital myself. 2 vehicles were damaged too.
Another challenge for telecom engineers is the shrinking subscriber base, a result of population displacement and the expansion of occupied territories. As a consequence, revenues from network users are falling, while the costs of restoring damaged infrastructure remain constantly high.
If we look back at the start of the full-scale invasion, we lost about 40% of our network right away, because those areas ended up under occupation. And now, over time, we're losing roughly another 20%. Mostly because the infrastructure is being destroyed and because people are leaving. When people move, their connections move with them.
During the war, there's another reason for the shrinking number of skilled specialists: their mobilization to the armed forces. That's why every step taken by state institutions to address this issue is critically important for the industry's survival.
Since the start of the full-scale invasion, by March 16th, we were already all officially reserved. That was the first thing that allowed us to keep working, to move across Ukraine, and to actually get things done.
One of the key factors that helped Ukraine's internet survive through long-lasting blackouts and massive infrastructure destruction was the sheer number of independent operators. Each of them kept their networks running, spending enormous amounts of money and resources to keep the country online.
If your country has only 1 or 2 internet providers, you're a digital corpse. You have to do everything you can to keep the market open and unregulated. Because the more decentralized it is, the stronger your digital resilience will be. Build more international connections. Create new links with countries no one even knows about. Of course, improve your connectivity. Establish BGP sessions between operators, between each other. Work together, stay connected, so that when the hard times come, you can simply call your colleagues, your partners, and cooperate, back each other up.
Massive shelling, energy instability, logistical challenges, and shortages of quality equipment became a true stress test for Ukraine's telecom industry. But these very conditions forced operators to quickly adapt, create new specialized departments, re-equip networks, transform access architecture, and reserve critical resources. The cost of this adaptation is enormous, but the results are gradually becoming evident. More and more nodes keep operating even in darkness. The number of passive optical networks is steadily increasing. Backup channels are becoming standard, making connectivity more reliable. The Ukrainian internet is learning to survive wartime conditions, becoming one of the most resilient networks in the world.